Hi, I'm Alison from Alison's Astrology, and welcome this week to the week that begins on the 4th of May to the 10th of May. So I'm just going to outline the astrology of the week as usual. And this week we're starting today, Sunday, with Pluto turning retrograde at 3 degrees 49 Aquarius. And that's going to happen in the late afternoon. So Pluto often tracks back during his long cycle, and he kind of grinds over every degree of the zodiac at least 3 times, because forwards, backwards, and then forwards again. And sometimes it can be 5 times, depending on the degree, because it can actually make 2 retrogrades over that point. So in this way, he ensures that every degree is going to be changed and transformed under his aegis, if you like, as he kind of moves forwards. And, this is the ongoing process of transformation and evolution. So it is necessary, of course, but it's not always comfortable. Outer planets spend large portions of the year retrograde every year. So it kind of might seem like Pluto tracking back and going retrograde isn't such a big deal. But the days now is around that change of direction, so that's now effectively, can often signify something quite important happening in your life. Especially then if you've got planets or angles near where that retrograde falls. So that's going to be around that 2.5 to 4 degrees of Aquarius. And Pluto going retrograde does indicate, of course, that backtracking is necessary. It's in progress, and it's a rethinking or a reworking of some kind of change that might be in progress, if you like. And sometimes with the retrograde as well, it can be a less than positive kind of chapter in that story. But of course, always all necessary, as everything is. Or it might mean that something that was in progress and seemed to be moving forward quite smoothly suddenly comes to a point and then doesn't get any further for a while. And then you have to go back over everything and rethink it and redo it and rework it until you're ready to move forward again. That's quite often a thing with Pluto too. So a change, a transition, maybe something necessary, but not always something that's super comfortable. And Pluto's going over his options, if you like. And as I mentioned, the retrograde pass of a planet over a particular degree, and that's inner planets as well as the outer planets, often brings a new development in the story that began when Pluto first tracked back through that space, those first degrees of Aquarius. So in this case, it was February and March of this year, and I'm actually going to share the chart at this point, just as well I remembered. So let me share that chart. There we are. Okay. And now I can actually show you where that's happening. So we've got Pluto here, and then by tomorrow, Pluto's gone retrograde. So he's moving back. This is Aquarius here. The Mars opposition's still there, but not really so much in effect now. That's trailing off. And Pluto's just moving backwards through those degrees of Aquarius. So check your charts. If you do have stuff around that point, then that will be important. And also, actually, if you've got anything on that 3 or 4 degrees, it's probably going to be extra important. So Pluto's going to track back and return to 1 degree 42 of Aquarius, and he'll reach that on October the 14th. So we've got a whole summer of Pluto kind of retrograding back and reworking whatever it is that's happening. And this is going to be clearing out, a sort of clearing out of whatever was happening during the February and March period of this year when he went forward through those signs. And for those with planets around those early degrees, when he does track back in the later part of the autumn, there should be a conclusion to that part of the story. So that's normally quite helpful to know, to think about, that this is actually, reworking, maybe not a complete abandonment of something. And after that point, of course, Pluto will move on and start affecting the transformation in the next few degrees of Aquarius. So on Tuesday, moving on ourselves, Venus, who is moving slowly through Aries because she's only just direct, she reaches a sextile with that retrograde Pluto. So let's just pull that up Tuesday. Yeah, so Venus here, look, and coming into that sextile. So she's still in Aries, but she's going more slowly than usual because of the sextile, because of just coming out of the retrograde. Takes time to get going when you've been asleep. And yeah, so reworking that point there. And this is a good, solid, workable aspect of sextiles. So with Pluto, it maybe suggests working with others to effect some kind of transformation. So maybe this Pluto tracking back through that part of Aquarius is something that you're going to be looking at to work on something with somebody else or with other people to try and work out how you can move forward, how you can achieve something, if you like, how you can affect a transformation that you want to see. And it's in Aries. Venus is dynamic in Aries, so she's forward-looking, something new. It's something that's you know, happening, if you like, and it's probably something that's in line with your values because it's Venus as well. So that could be a positive aspect of this tracking back and reworking something. It's to do with others, and it's in line with what you want with Venus, actually. And this could also, this Venus Pluto sextile could be an opportunity to make lasting changes to your relationships. Pluto's always about things that last, you know. You know, when something happens, happens under a Pluto transit, it carries on, It's not something that's gonna change back. So if you seem to have fallen into bad habits, or you know, in the Venus retrograde, you were hoping to make changes, but they don't seem to have quite manifested, and things are kind of, you know, all falling back, then this is a chance to actually work with partners, work with friends, work with people in your kind of relationship networks and make those changes happen. And it could be a useful aspect for finances too. It might be an especially good time to invest in yourself because Mars, who's ruling that, ruling Venus in Aries, of course, is in Leo. So that's the focus is now on you. So spending time, spending money, and investing in yourself could be a good thing to kind of begin during this Pluto and Venus connection. And this will probably positively impact your sense of self-worth if you do that. So it's worth doing. Look, Venus in Aries is on a quest. So this is a chance to kind of capitalize on this, if you like, and actually make it happen. It takes work, of course, it always does. But with that sextile, it's possible. Another thing is you might be able to revisit investment opportunities, something like that. I'm not a financial astrologer at all, so hands up there. But you know, Venus is about finance, and that is a positive aspect. So Pluto can be about finances too. And all of this Pluto-Venus could connect with a conversation, actually, because on the same day or just early the following morning, Mercury is joining with Chiron. Now, Chiron is usually not something that's easy, you know, not an easy place in your chart. This is the wounded centaur in the cave, but he was also a healer. So it's worth remembering that. And he was somebody who, you know, taught Apollo music and the arts, and he was a very sort of learned and, you know, exceptional centaur. So Mercury joining Chiron, it could suggest hurtful conversations or unwelcome news, or conversely, it could be something that is kind of healing earlier rifts. So that's something to look at, you know. If you've been kind of out of sorts with somebody, if there have been arguments, if there's bad feeling, it could be a time to kind of just tentatively take those first steps and kind of reassess how things are. And if it could be a good time to actually maybe move on that a little bit more positively, especially with the Pluto Venus as well, you know, and the positive relationship transformations. So this Mercury Chiron aspect is happening at 24 degrees varies. So if you have any planets or angles here or at 24 degrees of the cardinal signs or nearby, so that's Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn, it could be difficult, as I said, as is sometimes, maybe often the case with Chiron, but it could also be something that you need to talk through or tell other people about, something, you know, something that a conversation that needs to happen, which might not be easy, but is necessary nevertheless. So an opportunity, perhaps. Cool. And then lunchtime on Saturday the 10th of May, Mercury, who's moving pretty quickly again now, enters Taurus. So you might remember that Mercury never moves more than 28 degrees from the sun, you know, because he's an inner planet, so he's not going that far away. He's the solar messenger, if you like. And so in your birth chart, he's never going to be more than one sign away from the sun either. And of course, that's going to follow as well in the transits, obviously. So Taurus, it's a considered and practical placement for Mercury. And he kind of slows down a little bit mentally, thinks about things, takes the time to reflect, and is more inclined to hold back than blurt out. I mean, in Aries, Mercury was very much, I mean, some astrologers call him motor mouth, but it is very much just, okay, I'm going to say this because this is what I'm thinking, so you're going to hear it, you know? And with some people, not all, of course, and not all by any means, there might not be a lot of filter there. So with Taurus, there is a lot of filter, you know, and they're thinking about how to apply things practically to the situation. Workable solutions, in fact, if you like, which is great and helpful, of course. So if you do happen to get into arguments while Mercury is in Taurus, though, you do need to be a bit careful because there's going to be no going back from them. When Mercury is in Taurus, you know, what they say, they do mean. It's not like Mercury in Aries blurting stuff out, Mercury in Gemini, super sociable. No, if Taurus has said something, that's because he or she means it. So bear that in mind. And in the birth chart, I've really found the difference between Sun Geminis who've got Mercury in Taurus and Sun Geminis with Mercury in Gemini is a real huge difference. To a practical example. So the people with Mercury in Taurus, they're super sharp, just as they should be with the Sun in Gemini, analytical, they love to connect, but their thought processes are much more practical, and they tend, in my experience, to be engineers, more interested in nature, more interested in, you know, practical, sensual things, if you like. While the people who've got the Sun Geminis with Mercury in Gemini, they often, I've found, of journalists, business people, linguists, people who use language and conversation, you know, to make a living, to get on in the world, if you like. So that's interesting, and that will apply as Mercury shifts into Taurus. So practical engineers, you know, building that house, making that car, all those kinds of things. So as Mercury shifts this Saturday, then our thought processes are shifting with it, with him. And it'll be less about saying what we think and being direct, and much more about considering how we might find practical solutions to things. And that could be a good thing. I mean, globally, that could be a good thing too. I think we can probably agree on that. But it will, however, be a little bit harder to work out what people really mean, because they'll be playing their cards a bit closer to the chest and less likely to just say something as it comes into their head. So pay attention to that too. And that's pretty much where we leave it for this week. On Monday, there's an emotional, the following Monday, that is, there's an emotional full moon at the 22 degrees Scorpio. I think that's on the 13th. Could be emotionally challenging, and Saturn, of course, is edging ever closer to Aries, which it reaches on May the 25th. So check out my video with Terry to get a complete analysis of that transit. And check in with me next week for more on this important Scorpio full moon. Thanks for joining me. Please don't, let me stop the share for a second. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, bye-bye.